Welcome to the Rotary Club Milwaukee. I am Club President Darren Miller, President and owner of JM Construction. As we gather virtually for our 20th virtual meeting in our club's 108-year history, we'll continue our tradition of saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now, Tracy Johnson, President and CEO of Commercial Association of Realtors of Wisconsin, will give our invocation.
For our invocation today, I would like to offer some words of hope and encouragement. Microsoft, Hewlett-Packard, and Trader Joe's. Each of these companies was started in a recession. And today, they flex their innovative roots to survive and thrive during this economic crisis and the next. While there are many companies and individuals facing hardship, the underlying entrepreneurial spirit within our community is fueling startups, transforming our businesses, and inspiring a new way of thinking. This pivot is hard, but nothing easy is really lasting in this world. So on this Election Tuesday, I encourage you to think about how you look to the brighter days. And remember, you don't have to have it all figured out to move forward. Just take the first step.
Thank you, Tracy. Before we begin the program today, we have just a bit of club business. First, we have a new member introduction. Past RCM President, Dr. John Ridley, will now introduce our newest member, Beth Ridley.
John, you're on mute.
President Miller and fellow Rotarians, I am prolifically delighted to welcome a new member to our club who will bring creativity and energy to our group. Beth Ridley is the CEO, the COO, the CFO, and the entire workforce of the entity, The Brimful Life. Beth believes a positive, connected, and committed organizational culture is critical to business success. That's why she combined her 25 years of corporate leadership and management and consulting experience with her expertise in diversity and inclusion and positive psychology to launch The Brimful Life. The Brimful Life is a consulting firm that works with executives to strengthen their leadership skills and transform their leadership teams and organizational cultures to achieve the organization's vision and strategic goals. In addition, the Brimful Life podcast series and keynote presentations and workshops inspire and equip leaders to put people and culture first. Beth has lived and worked in London and Tokyo, Johannesburg, Bangkok, Boston, and New York City. She has a bachelor in English literature from the University of Virginia, a master's in internal relations from Tufts University, and an MBA from Columbia University. Beth actually lives a Brimful life, and she does that by spending time with her husband and 3 children, and with her running and her speed skating, and watching cooking competition shows on TV, which I find ironic because I know she hates to cook. Ladies and gentlemen, our newest member of the Rotary Club in Milwaukee, Mrs. Elizabeth Ridley.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dad. Nice to virtually meet everybody. I'm super excited to be a member. My dad's been part of Rotary for a very long time, and he had always come back and talk about like these amazing speakers that he heard on Tuesday. And I think in this time of the pandemic, it's really a time to sort of rethink and reevaluate, and I'm always looking to learn and grow. And I thought, you know, now would be a time to connect with an organization like this to just sort of broaden my horizon, expand my network, and to be part of like the amazing speakers that my dad keeps talking about every Tuesday. So I'm very happy to be part of the organization, and I look forward to meeting with or getting to know everybody.
Welcome, Beth. I know you'll be a terrific member. Look forward to meeting you in person, and certainly your dad is a legend in our club. All right, now stick with me. We've got a long list of announcements. A special note to Rotarians who are with us today. It is still a great time to join Rotary. We have waived the admission fee through the rest of 2020, and we have a special discount available, so speak to your friends. In fact, the board will be meeting this afternoon and reviewing, and I expect approving 4 new membership applications. This tells us that although we're not meeting in person, people still want to be a part of Rotary. So please share the Rotary story with your friends. As I mentioned last week, our club earned the Salvation Army's Volunteer of the Year Award in 2019, primarily due to the efforts of our holiday bell ringers. Now the Salvation Army is looking for volunteers to pack 1,000 boxes of food to be distributed to families in our city. The packaging will take place August 25th through 27th at the Salvation Army's Distribution Center. This is located at 5880 North 60th Street in Milwaukee. The Salvation Army is working in accordance with the CDC guidelines as it relates to protecting volunteers and staff. Please see the link in this morning's email to register to help. Thank you again to Megan Holbrook and Jason Ray for their discussion about the upcoming Democratic National Convention and Jason's role as Secretary of the Democratic National Committee. This was last week's Thursday snack program, and that program is now available on our YouTube channel. This Thursday, we are excited to welcome Brent Hazelton and Sherry Williams-Pennell to discuss Milwaukee's Black Theater Festival. This is a first ever festival, and I am delighted to announce that our club, through the RCM Community Trust, is a sponsor of this inaugural event. Although virtual this year, we anticipate outdoor productions next year in such venues as John Walker Stage in Johnson's Park. Also, on Thursday morning, the Coffee Connector Group will meet at 7:30 a.m. at Catalano Square for a socially distanced get-together. Please bring a cup of coffee from home or stop somewhere nearby and join your fellow Rotarians in person. See the group on Facebook or contact Teresa Regan for more information. We are looking forward to our annual RCM Scholarship Golf Classic on Monday, August 31st. Our golf registration is currently full, but for those who are comfortable, there will be an opportunity for Rotarians and your guests to join for a socially distanced outdoor cocktail reception following the golf at 5 p.m. Cost is $45 to attend and will feature heavy appetizers and an auction. See the link in this morning's email to register. And for those who can't be there, the silent auction will be open online on Monday, August 24th. Stay tuned for that. We know that we're still missing our face-to-face conversations, and we're working on ways, again, to incorporate more interaction into our Tuesday programs. So if you're joining today with us on Zoom, when we get to the Q&A portion of the program, we will change the format of the program so that you'll be able to view the fellow audience members. Please switch your view to gallery view at that time to see the audience. During that portion of the program, please continue to submit your questions via the chat function. After our program ends today, stick around on Zoom if you'd like to continue the conversation. And now, Jerry Stepaniak, Chair of the World Community Service Committee, will introduce our speaker.
Thank you, President Darren. Michael Paddock is a member of the Rotary Club of Milwaukee and is a major donor. He grew up in northern Minnesota and attended Michigan Technological University, receiving bachelor's degrees in civil engineering and surveying. He is a licensed professional engineer and surveyor whose professional career at CH2M Hill was spent managing teams of over 100 engineers, designing infrastructure projects exceeding $1 billion in value, including the Marquette, Mitchell, and Zoo interchanges. He is the youngest recipient ever of Wisconsin's Engineer of the Year Award. After a near-death cancer experience, he was motivated to begin a pro bono engineering career that has delivered over 100 projects on 5 continents over the last 20 years with Engineers Without Borders USA, Rotary, and other nonprofits. Mike recently has been concentrating on disaster response assignments, responding to Cyclone Idai in Mozambique, Volcano Fuego in Guatemala, and Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas. Now, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Mike has taken a sabbatical from EWB and is serving as a senior technical advisor for COVID-19 to the United Nations. Mike currently lives in southeast Wisconsin with his wife, Kathy. He recently published the book, Bridging Barriers, which tells the story of how a community changed its future with help from volunteers. I am extremely pleased to introduce Mike Paddock. Take it away, Mike.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Well, it's always a great day when you can speak to fellow Rotarians. So today, it's especially pleasing for me because I'm able to present to you the very first project that I did as a Rotarian in Guatemala over 12 years ago. And it has been really an important project that has built relationships ever since then, positioning us for what is now our COVID-19 response program. So this project started with these wonderful ladies. Gavina is a midwife, and she is seated on the right, and Josefa, her friend, also a midwife, is sitting on the left. Now you see, midwives are on the front lines of a community's healthcare system. They not only deliver babies, but treat everything from a machete cut to COVID-19. They're almost like a physician's assistant. Now, both Gavina and Josefa, like many midwives around the planet, feel like they're called by God for this amazing duty. They know how to do their job, and they are professionals. They're certified and they're trained. But they also know the barriers that exist for them to do their job correctly. And in this case, it was access to the local hospital and clean water. You see, access to the hospital was blocked by the Rio Motagua, which is nicknamed the Assassin due to the number of deaths caused by those attempting to swim its raging current. You know, I remember when Gavina first told me this story because she would talk about how she had gone to an expecting mother and felt the baby and knew that trouble was ahead. She knew the baby was in the wrong position, but there was nothing she could do. She couldn't get the mother and that unborn child to the hospital for a C-section. So all she could do is trudge back up the mountain, say a prayer, and hope for the best. The community was also plagued because it lacked clean water. And this caused infections with the newborns as well as their mothers, and provided danger to Gavina and the other midwives. You see, during this time, 2 to 3 babies were dying each and every year, along with one mother. And you need to realize that that mother was Gavina's friend and neighbor. And they were dying due to this lack of access and clean water. Sadly, this community is not alone. I mean, even today, believe it or not, during COVID-19, 2 billion people on this planet lack access to healthcare facilities with adequate water and sanitation. Now, this character is a character of all characters. His name is Mike Shawcross. Don Mike, as he is referred to, and is my mentor, and I considered him a very close personal friend. He started out as a British citizen that decided after college that he was going to walk from England all the way to China on 20 pounds. And this amazing adventuresome spirit took him next to the Northwest Territories in Canada, where he explored caves. And he loved caving. He actually joked about how he was amazed that the Canadian government would actually pay him to go and explore caves. And it's this love of caving that brought him to Guatemala, but it was the love affair that he had with the people there, their culture and their commitments that kept him there. And for 40 years, he did community development in the Highlands. And I was just so lucky that he was willing to share his lessons learned and take me under his wing as a mentee. In the book that Jerry referred to, I talk about these lessons learned that Don Mike shared with me. Because you see, before I met Don Mike, I actually thought I knew the answers to community development. And now I realize I didn't even know the questions. And over on the right, you can see a picture right before Don Mike's death of him being knighted by Prince Charles in Buckingham Palace. One of the most important lessons that Don Mike taught me, and really a cornerstone for our Rotary projects, is how to deal with a solicitation for a new project. You see, it's so important that the drive must come from the community itself. You see, you cannot help someone who does not want to be helped. Now, this is a picture of one of the pages. There was about 25 of these pages, and it shows thumbprints on this page representing the head of household for each family, showing their support for the project. You see, many of them cannot read and write. And this packet of solicitations was presented to Don Mike in his favorite restaurant in Antigua. And at the end of the meeting, where he promised that he would give the project a thorough assessment, nothing more, a live turkey was brought out in front of everybody at the restaurant and given to Don Mike for appreciation. After everybody left, of course, and he accepted it, he then gave it to his favorite waitress because Don Mike, being a bachelor, had no idea how to prepare such a bird. Don Mike then reached out to Marquette University, and this is a picture of one of the student groups that were involved in the project. And it really was a perfect fit because you see, Marquette University's motto is "Be the Difference." These students were committed to be the difference in removing these barriers to the community's dreams and hopes of a healthier lifestyle. It's also during this time that I was introduced to Rotary by Yash Wadra, a member of the North Shore Club. You see, Yash was also a civil engineer, and he mentioned to me this organization called Rotary and how it might be able to help and be an excellent fit with a motto that was service over self. The rest was really history for me. This particular photo shows how we started the bridge construction after the groundbreaking ceremony. You see, we are building a cofferdam in the middle of the river, and since we didn't have any sheet piling and equipment, we had to design the project using what we did have, which is human power and stones. This was really an important part of the project because you see, there were 14 different communities that were involved in the construction of this bridge, and all of them needed to work together. And through the act of passing very heavy stones from one person to another and trusting that your partner isn't going to drop it on your foot, I think we all learned the power of working together and doing amazing things. As this pier rose up out of the water in the middle of the river, it was very impressive. And I think when we got done with that particular assignment, we all knew we could really build this project. This particular photo is one of my favorites because everyone sees something different here. The engineers might see the 3 concrete mixers working simultaneously to provide the concrete for the bridge deck. Others might see the endless loop of wheelbarrows that are bringing the concrete out on top of the deck. And then my wife points out the 2 ladies hustling across the bridge, temporary bridge in the middle of the photo, with baskets or tortillas on their heads, because of course, all work crews work on their stomachs. I just love this picture because it's the same picture and everybody sees something different. But of course, after the bridge was completed, Gavina reminded us our work wasn't done. The community still needed clean water. And this was a picture of a map showing what the project would look like. The star represents a spring that would flow by gravity to a distribution tank that's represented by the square. And then from there, the water would flow down to the community. The total amount of pipeline was nearly the same distance from Milwaukee to Waukesha. This gives a better feel for what that terrain might look like. You can see that we're going up and over some mountains, through some ravines, across some forests, and even through some fields. And then you realize all of this needs to be dug by hand. The work teams were incredible. Over 100 people worked each day throughout the summer, and each worker is given 30 feet of trench to dig down about 30 inches. If you're lucky, maybe you get a nice soft piece of ground. But if you're unlucky, you might have to be digging through rock, stumps, or tree roots. It was an incredible task for this amount of work. So this picture, these people don't look very happy, but they pose in the traditional Guatemalan manner of not smiling. Trust me, they are ecstatic. I can tell you that there's nothing more rewarding to me than when we turn on water for the first time to a community. As you turn on the water at the distribution tank, it flows down to the first household, and as it comes out of the tap, you hear the family shout with joy as the water comes out. And then as gravity does its magic and pushes the water down to the next family and the next family, you can continuously hear more shouts coming up through the river valley as people receive water. It's an absolutely amazing experience that I'll never tire of. The reason for this joy is people like this mother realize they no longer need to fetch water from the river. You see, she fetched water her entire life, just like her mother and her grandmother. And now she no longer needs to be treated like a beast of burden. Maybe more importantly, she no longer has to make the unimaginable decision of which of her daughters will have to stay home and fetch water and which will be allowed to go to school. I remember when Gavina explained this to me and the anger that she had in her voice. She knows all of these young ladies. She brought them into this world. She knows how smart they are. She knows that they have incredible potential if they only are allowed to go to school. They could go be teachers, nurses, doctors, maybe even engineers, and contribute incredibly to society instead of being wasted as beasts of burden. The project was tested throughout time. And this is a picture from 2010 after the project was done, when there was a major hurricane called Agatha that came through the valley. It collapsed one of the mountains and plugged up the Rio Motagua until finally the water overtopped that earth dam and rushed in a 30-foot tidal wave all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, over 300 miles. I was spending some time doing disaster relief when I saw this picture in the newspaper in a neighboring town. And it's titled The Unbeatable Bridge, because every bridge was destroyed except the one that was built by Rotary and Engineers Without Borders. This is an interesting story for me because it still continues. I still get questions from people down in Guatemala and around the country asking what we did to build the bridge so that it withstood this incredible force. And the legend continues. There's stories about amazing Mayan ceremonies that were used, and even a rumor that we mixed bull's blood with the concrete to make it stronger. Of course, in the end, I have to admit, it was really just pure dumb luck. Now, you know, as a civil engineer, it is not very often that we get a chance to go and visit a project 10 years after it was completed and see what its true impact was. That was the fortunate experience that I had here 2 years ago, where an impact team came down, reviewed the project for nearly a week to see what had happened in this community. What we found is that once the barriers were removed, the community took charge of their future. They formed health committees that included the school and the new clinic. They formed advocacy groups to keep an eye on the most vulnerable, and even accompanied them to the hospital if needed, as many had never left the community before. Gavina and the other midwives reinforced the health and hygiene training that was given at the school to the children, and then also had classes for the adults in the evening. And then each and every time they visited a home, they continued to reinforce this so that people didn't fall back into their old habits. The results were amazing. The project completely eliminated maternal and infant mortality over those 10 years. School absences were reduced from 300 per month to just 2. And now more girls were attending school because they no longer needed to fetch water and be treated like beasts of burden. Once these barriers were removed, the community simply broke free. This is where Rotary speaks to having a real impact, removing the barriers to people's success and allow them to succeed and enjoy their dreams. So just a plug for the book. You can certainly order it on Amazon. All the proceeds go to the Guatemala program, but it would be my pleasure to send you either an electronic copy or a paperback. Just simply send me an email or send a quick note to Michelle in the office, and I'd be happy to send that as a complimentary gift to each and every one of you for all the support that this club has given to the programs. This relationships were put to the test 2 years ago when Volcano Fuego erupted. This is the ash cloud that was coming down from the volcano, and over 500 people lost their lives. Rotary knew that it needed to spring into action, and we worked on 3 different programs. 1 was food and shelter for those that were misplaced. 2 was healthcare facilities and schools that had been damaged by the volcano. And 3, bridges to restore access that had been interrupted in case the volcano was erupted again. During this time, we were able to form amazing relationships and build our network. This is a picture of the Army Corps of Engineers of Guatemala. This platoon was assigned to me for the 6 months that I was down there to help build the bridges. And this is a picture of one of those bridges with the volcano in the background continuing to smolder. These relationships were played forward once again now during the COVID-19 response. We not only leveraged our network with the Army Corps of Engineers, but also the Ministry of Health and CONRAD, which is similar to our FEMA here in the United States. But in addition to that, the proven delivery helped Rotary raise funds, and through banks and businesses in Guatemala, we were able to raise over $1 million, form 3 global grants, and Engineers Without Borders was also able to bring over $300,000 to the table for the response. The project started with an important assessment tool because we could no longer visit the sites because Guatemala, when it shut down, it was actually illegal to even drive. So we developed an app that we could use on smartphones that could be quickly sent to people at a healthcare facility and have them assess it on their own in very simple instructions on what the needs were. This assessment informed 3 programs: food security, local manufacturing of personal protective equipment for healthcare facilities, and infrastructure improvements for WASH at healthcare facilities. And this is just a picture of some of the PPE items that have been made by 12 Guatemalan manufacturers. The Rotary clubs in Guatemala identified these manufacturers that were not making PPE at the time, but willing to adapt their processes to do so. And then working with the biomedical engineers from the University of Wisconsin and Marquette University, they were able to be shown how to be able to make this adaptation to make healthcare grade products that could save and protect healthcare workers. This photo shows some of the improvements to the healthcare facilities that was done. We worked on improving wells, bathrooms, hand washing stations, as well as waiting rooms. Because you see, not only did we have more patients coming into the hospitals, but we also had those patients needing more water than a typical patient would use before the pandemic. It really put a strain on the water systems. This is a picture of the hospital in Escuintla. It's a major facility, 270-bed pediatric hospital that was struggling to keep up with its water demand. we were able to rehab the existing wells and squeeze out a little bit more water so that we can provide a little bit more water for the hospital to supplement what the municipality is trucking in. Our global grant that is being led by Jerry and Rotarians here at the Rotary Club of Milwaukee will provide the ultimate solution, which is drilling a deep well in new storage facility so that clean water can be provided to this hospital during this incredibly important period of time. So with that, just one more plug that if you're interested in a free copy of the book, you can send me an email at michaelwpaddock@gmail.com or just shoot Michelle a quick note. Make sure that you include the address that you'd like to have the book sent to, or if it's just an ebook, I'll have that through your email address. And with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up, say thank you so much for all of your support, and I'll address any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Mike, for joining us today. I mean, it's fantastic to see the work that our club's able to help support in one small way. The dedication that you have is the absolute picture of service above self. It's just fantastic to see. We're fortunate to have you as a member of our club. So with that, I'd encourage people to chime in on the chat function. I'll be moderating that. I have a couple of prepared questions for you, Mike. Tell us a little bit more about your Rotary journey, right? You gave us a cameo on your first look at the Rotary Club in the North Shore. Tell us more about your journey.
Sure, I'd love to. So Yash had told me about Rotary, and I did a little bit of investigation and learning about it, and then we were invited, the Marquette University chapter, to give a presentation to the North Shore Club. And I have to tell you that I went up and I started the presentation, and I could see everybody was just basically glassed over. There was no attention into what we were doing. But then when the students got up and they could see the passion and the energy that they brought to the project and the commitment that they had, the meeting just flowed over into another room and just kept going on and on. And that's when I knew that Rotary was really a kindred spirit for the work that I was going to do. And since then, obviously, I've been involved with the Rotary Club of Milwaukee on many projects. And I've actually found that it's been incredibly beneficial as I've done disaster response work too. One of the very first things I do, no matter if it's in Mozambique or in the Bahamas or Guatemala or in Ecuador, is I look up the local Rotary Club because they know the lay of the land, they know how to get things done, and it's much easier with their help. And it's incredibly amazing to me that if you come in and introduce yourself as a Rotarian, you're welcomed with open arms and there's immediate camaraderie. So it's a wonderful experience for me.
Yeah, that's great. We have a couple of questions coming in here on the chat function from Alex Cho. What is the capacity of the groundwater aquifers underlying these wells?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Because climate change is something that's impacting all over the planet. And especially in Guatemala, we've got this band, which we call the drought band, that has been in a kind of a period of about 10 years of low rainfall. The aquifers that we're tapping into for the wells, in the well that we'll be drilling in Escuintla, is 600 feet deep. So they're quite deep. And they're pretty complex because they're in this igneous rock that's all part of this volcanic structure that's down there. So it's good water when we can get it, but sometimes we have to go pretty deep to get sustainable water sources.
Another question from past President Steve. How do they ensure safety of the water supply, chemicals, other treatment? What's the political situation in the areas in which we work?
Yeah, so first of all, from the political standpoint, one of the things that we have found is we always work with the local government. Some NGOs will find that it's easier and faster to maybe work on their own. But as Rotarians, we understand how important it is, especially in a country like Guatemala, to reinforce the peace process, to make sure that people understand that the local people have this connection to their government and the government has a connection back to the people. So that's why we always ensure that we partner with the local municipality to help build that particular barrier, or break that barrier and build that relationship. The groundwater quality is actually pretty good. We test it twice a year, once during the dry season, once during the rainy season, to see what kind of contaminants may occur. So far, we haven't had too much problem with pesticides and things like that, but it's something that does concern us because we see more use of pesticides and other chemicals in the agricultural processes there. And we're always wanting to make sure we're mindful and monitoring that, because this is actually a major problem that we have in the United States, that many of our groundwater sources are being contaminated by the agricultural processes. Great question.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Tell us about some of the partnerships that you have with the local universities in Milwaukee. I know you mentioned Marquette and MSOE, of course. Tell us more about how that dovetails into your work.
Yeah, so each one of the engineering universities in Wisconsin has an Engineers Without Borders chapter. So Marquette, of course, MSOE, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, University of Wisconsin-Madison, which has been heavily involved as well in Guatemala, but also University of Wisconsin-Platteville has amazing programs going on in Ghana. And then Stout also has a program that is involved. So there's over 300 chapters of Engineers Without Borders around the country. I have to say that when we started the program, I don't think we ever thought that we would completely saturate the engineering university landscape, but that's the case now. And it's really amazing what these students are able to do and the commitment they have.
Yeah, I bet that they really have a great takeaway, being able to help design and then go see it pulled to fruition. I know in my experience at a couple of the large club conferences last year, one of the main hurdles to international work that Rotary has is partnering with a really good, solid local partner. Maybe you could give us a little bit more about your experience with that. I know a lot of clubs, they don't even pursue RI international grants because they just can't find those local partners. I assume it's critical to the work that you do.
Yeah, and that's so very, very true. And I think if there's anything you take away from this particular presentation, I hope it's particularly that. We're so lucky that we've been able to find a wonderful partner down in Guatemala and the club is the Vista Hermosa Club. We go down, as many of you know, once a year, visit with them socially, look at the projects, and just help foster that relationship that we have with them. And as you can see, this has been a building process over 10 years as that relationship continues to bloom and grow. Some clubs, I think, have taken an approach where they would maybe kind of do a project in Central America and then do one in Africa and then go do one maybe in Asia. And I think that that's a mistake, because you have to rebuild those relationships and that trust, which is so very, very important. And I think Jerry can attest to that in his work, that it's really important that we've got a partner that we trust and know. We know what they can do, they know what we can do, and then move that relationship forward. And what's amazing to me is not only this relationship between two Rotary clubs and districts, but now that relationship has extended to their federal government. So working with their federal government allows us to take on larger, more meaningful assignments like the Fuego effort, as well as this COVID-19. And I think actually the COVID-19 response that's being done in Guatemala is going to be featured in the Rotarian magazine in the next couple of months. So keep an eye out for that.
That's great. That's great. We have another question in here from Christine Hendricks. When our members go to assist, what is our role and what do they do?
Yeah, so there's several different things that we can do. We have certainly some of our members that go down and work on the engineering part of the projects. But when we go down and do our visits, I think one of the most important thing is that we help the local Rotary Club build that network. It's incredibly powerful when we can walk into a minister's office or a county executive type office, and we're there side by side with our Rotarians from Vista Hermosa and have this meeting, because they then see that we really are a global organization. We're serious, and that we have accomplished, we do what we said we're going to do when we said we're going to do it. And so to have that personal commitment, look people in the eye, shake their hands, is really an important part of this relationship building. And frankly, it's a lot of fun too.
I bet. We have another question from Amy Jensen. How much of what you do in your time is volunteered, or is this mostly supported as part of your work? I know you typically travel a lot on these projects, so how do you balance all of that?
Well, the first thing that I'll tell you is it's very important to marry a saint, and it's going to be able to support you in this effort. But as Jerry had mentioned in the intro, for me, it's really been kind of a personal choice. You know, once I had recovered from stage 4 cancer, this is something that my wife and I had committed ourselves to financially as well as career-wise, to work ourselves to a position where I could do this full-time as a volunteer. And so 5 years ago, I left CH2M to then become a full-time volunteer to do this work. I'm still a volunteer working for the United Nations as a COVID advisor. They pay me, I think, $5 a day. So that's my contract, which makes it very easy, I guess, to leave if they need to fire me. But it's something that I guess I just feel from a very personal standpoint that it was an obligation to do something with my life after I was given the gift for an extended time, after I unexpectedly found myself still here. So that's kind of my mission and how I got to this location.
Yeah, Mike, that's an incredible story. I mean, it truly is. Tell us a little bit more about that work that you're describing with the UN.
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting assignment. And for me, we've certainly worked with the UN before as part of our disaster response. And of course, you can imagine the UN is a very big bureaucratic system. And so I knew what I was getting into. But what we've seen with COVID is that there was a need. The Secretary General saw a need to be able to have a cross-cutting organization throughout the UN for this response. So they formed a group called the Technical Access Platform. It's led by UNDP, as well as World Health Organization, UN Technology Bank, as well as UN Trade. And it also has participation of the other UN agencies, including UNICEF, to be able to come together and help countries put together strategies to address the COVID response. And the areas that I'm particularly most involved with is use some of the lessons learned that we had in Guatemala for WASH in these healthcare facilities, as well as personal protective equipment that's made locally. Because in many of these countries, they just are not in a position to be able to compete to obtain PPE. I mean, we've struggled so much here in the United States, right? You can imagine what it's like if you're in Yemen or South Sudan or Mozambique or Malawi. So it's very important for them to try to be able to pivot some of their manufacturing to provide these important items locally.
We have another question from Matt Matson. Mike, what advice would you give to fellow Rotarians interested in participating in an international project like those you've been engaged in?
Yeah, I think the very first place to start is to raise your hand and get involved with the World Community Service Committee. You know, Jerry is the chair of that committee and does a wonderful job. We meet once a month. Of course, now we meet virtually, but we still meet. And this is where we work through, select our projects, decide on what we're going to be working on. And it really kind of is a very easy path to be able to get involved in the projects. And then depending on your interest and availability, of course, because we all have flexible schedules, then you can take on more and more assignments, be it working on the global grants or possibly fundraising, maybe working with the students as through the design process. So there's a lot of places to go once you've entered into the World Community Service Committee.
Another question here from Mark Rudinger. You have many moments in your book where you described a need to change your thinking with respect to your approach, design process, due to the realities of the situation in Guatemala versus the United States. How have subsequent projects benefited from these revelations? More cost effective, shorter schedule, or other benefits?
Yeah, I mean, I always find myself learning, and I've told people that every project that I've done, I've taken away some important lessons learned. And Don Mike had told me, he says, you know, when you stop learning, that's when they should put you in the ground. And I think that's very true. You're always in the process of learning, but you know, the systems are so different in the countries that we work in compared to what we're blessed with here in the United States. Much of the work is done with human power, again, using local materials like the stones you saw in these pictures. And for me, it was interesting, you know, as I started down this path and started working on projects back here in the United States, is it really is part of the sustainability model that you hear so many people talk about now. So using local materials, local products, not necessarily always bringing something that the engineers want, you know, the super strong steel that's going to need to be imported from another country. Maybe we should be looking at adjusting our design to use the steel that's locally manufactured here down in Chicago or nearby, and maybe fabricated up in Eau Claire, like much of the tub girders that we used in the Marquette. Those are the things that I think kind of opened my eyes when I was working on these projects and was able to apply to the Southeast Freeway program.
Makes a good deal of sense. Maybe give us, if you could, just a quick insight or update on how COVID-19 is impacting Guatemala and the clubs that we work with there.
Yeah, so in Guatemala and across Central America, things are pretty tight and pretty grim right now. They're literally right in their peak. They built COVID special hospitals, they're full. All of the regular hospitals are full. I just got some videos and talking to some people that the beds are all full. We've got people literally in the hallways, whatever we can to be able to give them whatever treatment we can do. So things are pretty tough down there. The Rotarians are doing amazing work down there. So when we generate personal protective equipment, those products are taken from that manufacturer directly to the hospitals that we're supporting. There's 12 hospitals that we've agreed to partner with, and they're transported by the Rotarians. We've gotten special essential travel waivers from the Minister of Health, and so they are doing absolutely yeoman's efforts to be able to get those products out to those hospitals in a timely manner. And it's really, really important. You know, I'll share with you that it's made a huge difference. There was, in the hospitals that we've been able to help with water as well as PPE, we only had one healthcare worker that came down with COVID. And the hospital credited the assistance that we gave them, particularly the PPE and the water, as the reason why that didn't expand into more of their staff. I'll contrast that with a hospital that was located only 30 miles away. And there, the virus, we were not working in that particular hospital, and they lacked PPE and they lacked water. And the virus got going in the staff, and they had to shut down the hospital and move their patients over to one of the hospitals that we were working with. So this has been an incredible lesson to me that what we do can make a real difference.
It's amazing, not only PPE, but just what clean water means to the world and to sanitation in general. Before we end, I want to also, give a big thanks to the World Community Service and Jerry Stepaniak and the work that they do and how that dovetails into the work that you and your group continues to do in Guatemala. So hats off to them as well, and to you and your team. It's an amazing partnership for us all. So with that, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Again, thank you, Mike, for being here. And I'm sure you know that in honor of our club members who speak at our Tuesday programs, Mike, we'll be making a donation today to the YWCA of Southeastern Wisconsin, whose mission is eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, and freedom and dignity for all.
Wow.
Thank you so much for being with us. Few announcements. Tune in this Thursday at noon for our snack program to learn more about Milwaukee's inaugural Black Theater Festival. Join us next Tuesday for a conversation between Rotarian Dr. Eve Hall, CEO of the Milwaukee Urban League, and Reggie Jackson, co-founder of Nurturing Diversity Partners. It'll be a great show. The formal portion of our meeting is adjourned. Stick around if you want to chat more.
Well done. Nice meeting. That's very, very instructive, very helpful, very useful, much fun.
Nicely done.
So, Mike or Jerry, I got my